When my neighbor pounded on my door at 3 a.m. saying, "Pack a bag, you need to leave," I thought he'd lost his mind. But when he shoved his phone in my face and said, "You have 10 minutes," I saw something that made my blood run cold. 5 minutes later, I understood why he risked everything to save my life. My name is Nina Hartley. I'm 29 years old, and I work as a veterinary technician in Boise, Idaho. The man who knocked on my door that night was Daniel Foster, my 62-year-old neighbor who lived right next to me. We weren't close friends, just the kind of neighbors who wave hello and sometimes chat about the weather. That night, he became the reason I'm still alive. Before we get into this story, make sure you hit that subscribe button and drop a comment telling me where you're watching from. I'd love to know. I moved to Maple Street 3 years ago, right after I finished vet tech school. I wanted somewhere quiet, somewhere peaceful, where I could just breathe and build my life on my own terms. The neighborhood was perfect for that. Small houses with big yards, families who'd lived there for decades, the kind of place where everyone knows everyone and crime is basically non-existent. It felt safe. It felt like home. My house was a small 2-bedroom with white siding and a blue front door. I lived alone except for my 2 rescue cats, Pepper and Storm. Pepper is this grumpy orange tabby who hates everyone except me, and Storm is a tiny black cat who thinks she's a guard dog. They were my whole world. My life was simple and routine. I'd wake up at 6 a.m., feed the cats, drive to the animal clinic where I worked from 7 a.m. until 4 p.m. Most days were good, helping animals, assisting with surgeries, calming down worried pet owners. I'd come home tired but satisfied, make dinner, take an evening walk around the neighborhood, and usually be in bed by 10 p.m. It was predictable, maybe even boring to some people, but I loved it. After growing up in a chaotic house with an alcoholic father and a mother who left when I was 12, predictable felt like a gift. My older sister Vanessa lives in Portland now. She's got her own life, a good job, a fiancé she's planning to marry next summer. We video chat every Sunday without fail. She's the only family I really have left, and even though we're 4 hours apart, she's my best friend. Daniel Foster lived in the house directly next to mine, maybe 30 feet from my bedroom window. He was a retired firefighter, spent 30 years running into burning buildings to save people. His wife Ruth died from cancer 4 years ago, and you could tell he still missed her every single day. His house was always perfect, lawn mowed in straight lines, American flag flying from the porch, everything neat and organized like you'd expect from someone with his background. Daniel and I had a friendly but distant relationship. He'd bring me tomatoes from his garden in the summer, these huge red ones that tasted better than anything from the grocery store. I'd check on him during bad winter storms, make sure he had food and hadn't slipped on ice. We'd chat for maybe 5 minutes at a time, talk about the weather or neighborhood gossip, then go back to our separate lives. That was it. We weren't friends who had dinner together or knew personal details about each other, just good neighbors. The night everything changed was a Tuesday in late September. I'd worked a really long shift that day. We had this golden retriever come in after being hit by a car, and the surgery was complicated and stressful. I got home around 6 p.m. feeling completely drained. I fed Pepper and Storm, heated up some leftover pasta, and collapsed on my couch. By 9:30 p.m., I was already in bed, exhausted enough that I fell asleep almost immediately. I remember that night being so quiet. No cars driving by, no dogs barking, just peaceful silence. The kind of night where you feel grateful for where you live, for the safety and calm of a good neighborhood. I fell asleep thinking about how lucky I was to have found this place. I had no idea that in less than 6 hours, everything I thought I knew about safety was about to be destroyed. I was ripped out of sleep by someone pounding on my front door. Not knocking, pounding. My bedroom was dark and my brain was foggy with sleep. I grabbed my phone off the nightstand and the screen nearly blinded me. 3:17 a.m. Who the hell was at my door at 3:17 in the morning? The pounding continued, urgent and frantic, like someone was trying to break through the wood. My first thought was that something terrible had happened. Maybe Daniel had a heart attack or fell down his stairs. Maybe there was a fire. I threw off my blankets, grabbed my robe, and ran through my dark house toward the front door. Pepper and Storm scattered in different directions, startled by the noise and my sudden movement. My hands were shaking as I looked through the peephole. It was Daniel. He was standing on my porch in pajama pants and a jacket thrown over his t-shirt. No shoes, just slippers. His face was pale and covered in sweat, even though it was a cool September night. Something was very wrong. I unlocked the deadbolt and pulled the door open. Before I could even ask if he was okay, Daniel stepped forward and grabbed my arm gently but firmly. "Nina, listen to me very carefully. You need to pack a bag right now. Just essentials. Clothes, phone, documents, whatever you can't live without. You need to leave your house in the next 10 minutes. His voice was shaking, but his eyes were completely serious. I stared at him like he'd grown a second head. This didn't make any sense. Daniel was the most stable, reasonable person I knew. 30 years as a firefighter meant he didn't panic easily, didn't overreact to situations. But here he was at 3 a.m., telling me to pack a bag and leave my house. What? Daniel, what are you talking about? It's 3 in the morning. What's going on? I was confused and scared, not of any external threat, but of him. Was this what a mental breakdown looked like? Had grief over Ruth finally caught up to him after 4 years? "I don't have time to explain everything," he said, his voice cracking with urgency. "Please, you have to trust me. You are in danger. Serious danger. You need to leave right now." I took a step back into my house, putting distance between us. My mind was racing through possibilities. Early onset dementia, some kind of psychotic episode. Had he stopped taking medication? "Daniel, you're scaring me. You're not making any sense. Are you feeling okay? Do you need me to call someone for you? Maybe your sister?" His face twisted with frustration and something that looked like genuine fear. "I'm not crazy, Nina. I'm not sick. I'm not confused. You are in immediate danger, and if you don't leave this house in the next 10 minutes, something terrible is going to happen to you." The way he said it, the absolute conviction in his voice, made my skin crawl. I started to close the door. "I think you should go home, Daniel. We can talk about this in the morning when you're feeling better. Maybe we can call your doctor together." He shoved his foot in the door to stop me from closing it. "Wait, just wait." He fumbled with his phone, his hands trembling so badly he almost dropped it. "Look at this. Please, just look at my phone." He held the screen up to my face, and I saw a text message thread. The contact name at the top made my stomach drop into my shoes. Kyle Hammond, my ex-boyfriend. My vision blurred for a second. Kyle had been in prison. He was supposed to be locked up for at least another year. I forced myself to focus on the messages on Daniel's screen. They were time-stamped from tonight, the most recent one sent just 30 minutes ago. "Is she home?" The first message read. Someone responded, "Yeah, lights went out around 9:30. Then Kyle again, "You're watching the right house? 2847 Maple Street?" The response, "I'm parked 2 houses down, silver Honda. Her car's in the driveway." Then Kyle's final message, "Perfect. I'll be there in 20 minutes. Don't let her leave." My legs went weak. I grabbed the door frame to keep from falling. The address in those messages was my address. Someone was watching my house right now. Kyle was coming here. "How do you have these messages?" I whispered. "Who sent you these?" Daniel's voice was barely audible. "Kyle is my nephew, my sister's son. I didn't know you had any history with him until 30 minutes ago when these texts came through. He doesn't know I live next door to you. He meant to text his friend who's watching your house. He texted the wrong number. He was off by 1 digit. He texted me by mistake." The words hung in the air between us. Kyle was Daniel's nephew, the man who'd stolen from my clinic, who'd grabbed my arm hard enough to leave bruises when I confronted him, who'd screamed threats at me through my car window, was related to my neighbor. And he was coming here right now. Daniel must have seen the panic spreading across my face because he grabbed both my shoulders and looked directly into my eyes. "Nina, I know this is overwhelming. I know you're terrified, but we don't have time to process this." He said 20 minutes in that message, and it was sent half an hour ago. He could pull up to your house any second now. We need to move. Something in his voice, the urgency mixed with genuine care, snapped me out of my frozen state. I turned and ran toward my bedroom, my bare feet slapping against the hardwood floor. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely grip anything. I yanked open my dresser drawers and started grabbing clothes, not even looking at what I was taking. Jeans, shirts, underwear, socks, everything went into the duffel bag I kept in my closet. Daniel followed me inside, and I heard him checking the windows in my living room, looking out at the street. His firefighter training was kicking in, assessing exits and threats like he'd done 1,000 times before. "Is there a back way out of this house?" he called to me. My voice came out strangled and high-pitched. "The sliding glass door in the kitchen goes to the backyard." I was moving on autopilot now, my brain trying to catch up with what was happening. I grabbed my laptop off my desk, my charger, the small lockbox from under my bed that had my birth certificate and passport. What else did I need? What do you take when you're fleeing your own home in the middle of the night? "Where's your car?" Daniel asked from the hallway. "In the driveway, the front driveway." The words had barely left my mouth when I realized the problem. If someone was watching my house from 2 houses down, they'd see me if I tried to get to my car. They'd see me leaving. Daniel must have realized the same thing because he cursed under his breath. "Okay, new plan. You'll take my truck. It's parked in my garage. We can get there through the backyard. There's a gate in the fence that connects our properties." I looked around my bedroom frantically. What else? My cats. I couldn't leave Pepper and Storm. I grabbed their carrier from the closet and started chasing Pepper, who'd hidden under the bed the moment the chaos started. "Come on, Pepper. Please, not now," I begged, reaching under the bed frame. Storm was easier, letting me scoop her up and place her in the carrier. Pepper finally gave up fighting, and I managed to get both cats secured. Then we heard it. A car door slamming. Outside. Close. Very close. Daniel moved to my front window and carefully pulled back the edge of the curtain. Just an inch. His entire body went rigid. "There's a truck in your driveway. Someone just got out." His voice had dropped to barely a whisper. The blood drained from my face. My phone buzzed in my hand, making me jump so hard I nearly dropped it. A text message from a number I didn't recognize lit up my screen. "I know you're in there, Nina. We need to talk. Open the door." It was Kyle. He was outside my house right now, standing on my property. Daniel turned to me, his face pale but determined. "Go. Right now. Kitchen, back door, through my yard to my garage. Move." I grabbed my duffel bag, my purse, the cat carrier, and ran. My sock-covered feet slid on the kitchen tile as I fumbled with the lock on the sliding glass door. My hands wouldn't work properly, kept slipping off the latch. Behind me, I heard heavy footsteps on my front porch. Then pounding. Aggressive, angry pounding that shook my front door. "Nina, open up. I just want to talk. I know you're home." Kyle's voice carried through my house. That same voice that used to tell me he loved me, now twisted with something dark and threatening. The lock finally gave way, and I slid the door open. Daniel was right behind me, pushing me forward into the darkness of my backyard. We ran across the grass toward the fence that separated our properties. I could barely see where I was going, stumbling over uneven ground, the cat carrier banging against my leg. Behind us, the sound of breaking glass shattered the night. Kyle had smashed through my front window. He was inside my house. We were out of time. Daniel fumbled with the gate latch in the darkness, his hands shaking as badly as mine. The sound of Kyle moving through my house carried across the yard, furniture scraping, his voice calling my name with increasing anger. "Nina, I know you're here somewhere. Stop playing games." The gate finally swung open, and we stumbled through into Daniel's yard. He grabbed my elbow, guiding me toward his garage's side entrance. My lungs were burning, my arms aching from carrying the cat carrier and duffel bag. Inside the carrier, Pepper and Storm were yowling in fear, their cries sounding impossibly loud in the quiet night. Daniel unlocked his garage door and practically shoved me inside. The overhead light flickered on, revealing his old red pickup truck parked in the center. He dug into his jacket pocket and pulled out his keys, pressing them into my palm. "Drive straight to the police station on Jefferson Street. Don't stop for anything. Not red lights, not stop signs, nothing. Just go." I stared at the keys in my hand, then at Daniel's face. "What about you? You need to come with me. He was already pulling his phone out again, his thumb hovering over the emergency call button. I'm calling 911 right now. I'll tell them everything. I'll give them the text messages. Tell them Kyle broke into your house. But you need to go. Now. I threw my bags into the passenger seat of the truck, set the cat carrier on the floor, and climbed behind the wheel. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely get the key in the ignition. The engine roared to life, sounding deafening in the enclosed garage. Daniel hit the button for the garage door and it began its slow crawl upward. Keep your headlights off until you're down the street, he instructed, already talking to the 911 operator. Yes, this is an emergency. There's a break-in in progress at 2847 Maple Street. I put the truck in reverse, my foot trembling on the brake pedal. Through Daniel's garage door opening, I could see across both yards to my house. My front door was wide open now, light spilling out onto the porch. As I backed slowly out of the garage, I saw Kyle emerge from my house, moving fast toward his truck. He hadn't seen me yet. He was checking his phone, probably texting his friend who was supposed to be watching. I reversed into the street, turned the wheel, and pressed down on the gas. The truck lurched forward. That's when Kyle's head snapped up. Our eyes met for just a second across the distance, his face illuminated by my porch light. I saw recognition flash across his features, then rage. He started running toward his truck, pointing at me and screaming something I couldn't hear. I floored the accelerator, Daniel's truck speeding down Maple Street faster than was safe, but I didn't care. I reached the corner and took the turn too fast, the tires squealing. My phone was in the cup holder, lighting up with incoming texts. I didn't look at them. I knew they were from Kyle. In my rearview mirror, I saw headlights appear behind me. My heart stopped. Was it him? Had he gotten to his truck that fast? The headlights were getting closer. I pressed harder on the gas pedal, blowing through a stop sign at the next intersection. My entire body was shaking. Pepper and Storm were crying in their carrier. I wanted to cry too, but I couldn't. I had to focus on driving, on getting to safety. Jefferson Street appeared ahead, and I recognized the police station, a low brick building with bright lights and several patrol cars in the lot. I swung into the parking lot so fast I nearly hit a parked car. A police officer was standing outside the front entrance holding a coffee cup. He looked up in surprise as I skidded to a stop and practically fell out of the truck. "Help me, please help me," I gasped, my legs barely holding my weight. My ex-boyfriend just broke into my house. He's been watching me. He was there. He's following me. The officer's expression changed instantly from surprise to alert professionalism. He grabbed his radio. "I need backup at the station. Possible domestic violence situation. Suspect may be en route." He put his hand on my shoulder, guiding me toward the entrance. "Ma'am, you're safe now. Come inside. Tell me everything." I looked back at the street, terrified I'd see Kyle's truck pulling in behind me, but there was nothing, just empty pavement and streetlights. Inside the station, everything became a blur of fluorescent lights and questions. I sat in a small room wrapped in a blanket someone had given me, my voice hoarse from talking, from crying, from fear. Another officer came in, a woman with kind eyes and a gentle voice. She told me they'd sent units to Maple Street immediately. They'd gotten Daniel's 911 call with all the information, the text, messages, everything. 10 minutes later, the radio crackled with an update. They'd arrested Kyle at my property. He was still inside my house when the police arrived, tearing through my bedroom looking for me. They'd also picked up his friend Brett, sitting in that silver Honda, exactly where the text messages said he'd be. 2 houses down, watching and waiting. When they searched Kyle's truck, they found zip ties, duct tape, and a hunting knife in a bag behind the driver's seat. The detective who told me this information had a grim expression on his face. "Ms. Hartley, based on what we found and the messages on Mr. Foster's phone, we have reason to believe Kyle was planning to abduct you tonight. If you'd been in that house when he broke in, we'd be having a very different conversation right now." Kyle Hammond was charged with attempted kidnapping, first-degree burglary, stalking, criminal mischief, and violating the terms of his parole. His accomplice, Brett Lawson, received charges as an accessory to attempted kidnapping and conspiracy. The prosecutor assigned to my case was a woman named Jennifer Ross, who sat me down 3 days after that night and explained everything they'd uncovered. Kyle had been released from prison 2 months earlier, not the year I thought he still had remaining. He'd gotten out early for good behavior, which felt like the cruelest joke in the world. The moment he was free, he started planning. He'd somehow tracked down my new address, spent weeks watching my routine, learning my schedule down to the minute. He knew what time I left for work, what time I came home, which nights I went for walks, everything. Brett had been his cellmate in prison, and Kyle had convinced him to help by promising him money he didn't have. The hunting knife they found in Kyle's truck had my name carved into the handle. When the detective showed me a photo of it during one of my statements, I threw up in the trash can beside her desk. I couldn't go back to my house after that night. Just the thought of walking through that front door, seeing the broken window, knowing Kyle had been inside touching my things and searching for me, made my skin crawl. My sister Vanessa drove down from Portland the next morning and helped me pack up everything I owned. She didn't ask questions, didn't tell me I was overreacting. She just showed up and started filling boxes while I sat on the floor crying. Daniel helped too, carrying furniture to the moving truck, his face lined with guilt even though none of this was his fault. We barely spoke during those hours, but every time our eyes met, there was an understanding between us. He'd saved my life, and we both knew how close I'd come to disappearing that night. I found a new apartment across town in a secured building with cameras in every hallway, a doorman who checked identification, and deadbolts on every door. It cost more than I could really afford, but I didn't care. Safety became worth any price. The trial happened 4 months later. I had to sit in that courtroom and look at Kyle while the prosecutor presented all the evidence. The text messages, the weapons, the carved knife, testimony from Brett about Kyle's plans for that night. Kyle's lawyer tried to claim it was all a misunderstanding, that Kyle just wanted to talk to me about closure, that the knife was for protection, but the jury didn't buy it. They saw the zip ties and duct tape. They heard the 911 recordings from that night. They saw the photos of my smashed front window and the damage inside my house from Kyle tearing through it, looking for me. The judge sentenced Kyle to 15 years in prison, with no possibility of parole for at least 10. Brett got 6 years. When the verdict was read, I finally felt like I could breathe again. Daniel attended every single day of the trial, sitting in the back row. His sister, Kyle's mother, didn't speak to him anymore. She'd accused him of betraying family, of choosing a stranger over her son. Daniel's response was simple and devastating. I raised Kyle like my own after his father left. I loved that boy. But the person who broke into Nina's house that night wasn't the nephew I knew. That was a predator, and I won't apologize for stopping him. Daniel and I have dinner together every Sunday now. He's teaching me how to grow tomatoes in containers on my apartment balcony. I'm teaching him how to video chat with his daughter who lives in Boston so they can talk more often. We don't talk much about that night anymore, but it's always there between us. The unspoken knowledge of what almost happened and what didn't, because one man saw a wrong number text and chose to act. Last month, I went back to Maple Street for the first time since moving out. A young family lives in my old house now, with a toddler who plays in the front yard where Kyle once stood calling my name. I sat in my car for a while, just looking at it, remembering the girl who thought she was safe there. She wasn't naive, just trusting, and that's okay. The world needs trust to function. What she needed was someone watching out for her, and she got that in the most unexpected way. Here's what I want everyone watching this to understand. Danger doesn't always announce itself with obvious warning signs. Sometimes it comes from people you used to love, people you thought were gone from your life forever. Kyle had been planning this for months while I went about my normal routine, completely unaware. I'd convinced myself I was safe because he was supposed to be in prison, because 2 years had passed, because surely he'd moved on. But obsession doesn't work on logic or timelines. It festers and grows and waits for opportunity. The only reason I'm here telling this story is because of a text message sent to the wrong number and a neighbor who chose to act instead of ignore it. Daniel didn't have to knock on my door that night. He could have called the police and stayed out of it, avoided the Palmas family drama and complications. But he saw someone in danger, and he acted, immediately, and without hesitation. That decision, those 10 minutes of action, saved my life. I think about the version of this story where Kyle's text went to the right number, where his friend got that message instead of Daniel. I'd probably be a missing persons case, another woman who vanished from her home in the middle of the night while her neighbors slept peacefully next door. If this story affected you, hit that subscribe button right now and leave a comment telling me what you think. Your support means everything to me. Trust the people who show up for you in crisis. Listen when someone tells you you're in danger, even if it sounds crazy, even if it comes at 3 a.m. from someone you barely know. And if you ever get that gut feeling that something's wrong, don't dismiss it. I'd spent weeks feeling watched and uncomfortable, brushing it off as paranoia. It wasn't paranoia. It was my body trying to warn me about a threat my conscious mind hadn't identified yet. Daniel Foster is 62 years old, a retired firefighter who spent his career saving people from fires. That night, he saved me from something far worse. He's not a hero because he's extraordinary. He's a hero because when the moment came, he chose action over comfort, stranger over family, and right over easy. We all have that choice when we see someone in danger. I hope you'll make the same one he did. Thank you for watching, and please, stay safe out there.